All right, then, Econ friends, welcome back. You have made it through perfect competition, which is the first and really the most complicated of the market structures. So congratulations. You now understand what the model is, the idea of price takers. You understand short-run profit maximization. You know the loss conditions. You know the break-even condition. You know the short-run supply curve. You then learned about the short-run to long-run adjustment and how entry or exit will affect supply. And you know that you have this long-term equilibrium where P equals ATC. You then learn some technical analysis on long-run supply curves. So you've done a lot. Congratulations on that, and thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate your time and your work on this. In this, our last video on perfect competition, we're going to jump into a discussion that we're going to jump into at the end of every market structure video, and that is the discussion of economic efficiency. Specifically, the big question that you want to be asking yourself for every market structure that you learn about, that you study, what are the implications of this particular structure on society's overall social welfare, on economic efficiency? In other words, my friends, what we're asking is this model that we've learned so much about, is this perfect competition thing even worth a damn? Does it make people better off or not? Because that's the fundamental goal of economics: make society better off, maximize social welfare, maximize efficiency. Okay, so we're going to do that, and we're going to start off that analysis by reviewing long-run competitive equilibrium, because that's the end state of this model. Okay, so you'll recall from before that in the perfect competition market structure, long-run equilibrium occurs when entry into and exit out of. So when entry and exit over time cause the firms in the industry to have zero economic profit, aka when price is equal to ATC at the profit maximizing output level. Okay, this is going to result in several really important sources of economic efficiency. So I'm going to tip my hand here. When it comes to economic efficiency, the competitive market, the competitive structure is going to be the best. Let's understand why. And let's start first by just taking one quick look at this diagram, which we identified before. This is perfect competition at long-run equilibrium. And you will see again that we have the demand, which is the MR, which is the price. And at this long-run equilibrium, we know that the price will be equal to ATC. Critically, this magic point here is what we're going to look at. Okay, so let's ask ourselves, what about these efficiencies? But before we do that, I do want to point out, just as we look ahead to our future lectures and future markets, that these efficiencies do not occur in other market structures. They are unique to the perfect competition structure. Okay, so let's discuss and dissect this efficiency, and then let's have a couple of concluding notes on the nature of competition and what it means for us. The first type of efficiency that we studied way back was productive efficiency. And productive efficiency, you recall, was defined as obtaining the maximum possible output with a given set of resources, or seen differently, obtaining output for the lowest, the minimum possible cost. Okay, productive efficiency occurs when the production of goods and services is at the lowest possible, aka the minimum average cost. So we would summarize this condition as P equals minimum ATC. You can think of this efficiency, you can think of this productive, sorry, let's get this clean, of this productive efficiency as efficiency in the creation of goods. When a firm is taking scarce resources and converting them into finished goods and services, is it doing it? Is it creating the goods efficiently? Is it minimizing average total cost? Well, let's go back up to our drawing here. And if you notice, MR equals MC right here. So this point equals the profit maximizing output level. That's also where the price is. And notice, we know from before that the ATC curve is minimized where it intersects the MC curve. In other words, we know that the point where MC hits ATC, where MC hits ATC, which is right here, is the minimum ATC. Well, look what we see here. In the model you see, which again is perfect competition at long run equilibrium, the output level is such that the price equals minimum ATC. Price equals minimum ATC. And therefore, my friends, we can safely say that the perfect competition model meets the criteria and achieves productive efficiency. So that's one test. There's another form of efficiency. This is known as allocative efficiency. Allocative efficiency refers to obtaining maximum well-being by producing the, we'll call this the right set of goods and services. So you can think of productive efficiency as making things in the best way possible. You can think of allocative efficiency as making the right things that society values. In other words, allocative efficiency occurs when producers use those scarce resources to actually produce the items that consumers actually prefer, and that specifically consumers are actually willing to pay for. Allocative efficiency occurs, and this is our second one, this is our second efficiency. Allocative efficiency occurs when producers make the right things, meaning that they use scarce resources to produce the items that consumers want. How do we know that consumers want them? Because they're willing to pay for them. Whereas productive efficiency was efficiency in the creation of goods, you can think of allocative efficiency as efficiency in the distribution, in the allotment of goods. When a firm reaches productive efficiency, when a firm reaches allocative efficiency, beg your pardon, it implies that the firms are making the right amount. In other words, that they're not producing too little of an item. In other words, that they're not underproducing. Because you know now that if a firm is underproducing, if it's not producing enough of the item, if it's producing too little, that implies that some mutually beneficial transactions, some mutually beneficial buy-sell transactions are not going to occur. And when some potential gains from trade don't occur, you know that that is an inefficiency, specifically an inefficiency that we call a dead weight loss. In other words, to achieve allocative efficiency, firms have to produce units up to the point where the price of the unit equals marginal cost. Again, you achieve allocative efficiency by producing the right amount of goods. This implies that you produce goods for everybody who's willing and able to pay for it above the cost of production. In other words, my friends, to summarize this, allocative efficiency implies that you are producing output up to the point where the price of the output equals its marginal cost. In other words, where P equals MC. Let's go back up to our long run graph. Let's clean this up a little bit. Let's analyze it. We know again that the firm will produce where MR equals MC, so that's right there. We drop that line down. That's our production. That's our price. And notice what we see. The marginal cost curve intersects the demand marginal revenue curve at that point. So in this case, at an output of 4, the firm in long run equilibrium is in fact producing an output for which price equals marginal cost. In other words, my friends, we can summarize by saying that the competitive firm in long run equilibrium also achieves mission accomplished allocative efficiency. So we have these two types of efficiency, productive and allocative, and we can now put all this together to summarize that perfect competition achieves these metrics. And as a result, we would conclude this lecture series by saying that the perfect competition market structure not only achieves our two efficiencies, but also maximizes total surplus and eliminates dead weight losses. And for this reason, many economists, if not most, consider perfect competition, this market structure that you now know well, to be the ideal market structure. This is why we dedicated so much time and so many videos to this structure. Because even though perfect competition might be rare in the real world, it's still critically important because it's the ideal market structure. It's the market structure that is best for society, that is best for consumers, that maximizes social welfare. And this market structure also helps us understand more than any other structure you're going to learn why competition, and specifically what we call competitive dynamics, are so damn important. I want to give a couple of quick notes on competition, because we know that perfect competition has it, and that entry and exit is the manifestation of it. You should know that competition is seen by many economists as critical to the functioning of a good economy. Because competition achieves many things. Number one, competition automatically pushes firms to achieve productive and allocative efficiencies. We just saw this. But let's remember, the firms didn't get there just because they wanted to. The firms didn't just one day wake up in efficient states. They got there through the dynamic process of competition in that short run, long run adjustment. And therefore, competition, which leads to productive and allocative efficiency, this happens because it forces firms to operate efficiently. Competition forces firms to operate efficiently and to use those scarce resources wisely. In a competitive structure, there's no room for waste. There's no room for inefficiency. The market drives the firms through the metric of competition to be more efficient, to allocate better, to produce smarter. Okay, that's really important. And critically, you know that firms that fail to do this, that firms that fail to keep their costs low, they're going to suffer losses and they're going to be booted from the market, manifested in a process that we call bankruptcy. You can think of bankruptcy when a firm is unable to cover its costs and has to go out of business. You can think of bankruptcy as the penalty that the competitive market puts on firms that fail to be efficient. On the flip side, you can think of profit as the reward that the competitive dynamic process gives to firms that do the right thing and make the right product and make it efficiently and give it to the right customers at the right time for the right price. So this is what competition does. It punishes firms that don't do a good job. And at the same time, it rewards good firms with profit. And critically, it is that pursuit of profit that forces firms to operate well. And therefore, and this is an interesting thing, a connection that you have to make, in a competitive market, the pursuit of profit will automatically move, will automatically direct, will automatically nudge society's scarce resources to their most productive and efficient uses. This is what Adam Smith referred to as the invisible hand. The idea that market competition and the pursuit of profit is this invisible hand that moves resources. Critically, competition, the invisible hand, it moves resources not to waste, but rather to their most productive and efficient uses. Competition also forces businesses to be innovative and forward-thinking. Competition forces firms to be willing to experiment. Competition forces firms, if they want to stay alive, to always be scanning the landscape for the best practices, for the most efficient practices, and to either implement their own or to adopt and implement ones that other companies come up with. So there's this relentless pressure on existing firms to always improve your products, improve your operations, improve your business practice. It's relentless. Firms that fail to do it, they go bankrupt. But firms that can do it, they make profits. But of course, those profits are temporary because long-run mechanics drive us down the way away from it, okay? Profit does something else. The profit motive, the desire for profit, gives firms in these markets a massively strong incentive to both discover and to efficiently produce the different goods and services that you as consumers value. Note that if left alone, no firm wants to take on the cost and all the hassle involved and all the risk involved with innovation. But in a competitive market, if a firm wants profit, no choice in the matter, because the profit motive and those competitive dynamics, they drive firms, they force firms to be responsive to you as consumers, to think what you guys want, to discover your preferences, and to produce the items that you want. In other words, in a competitive market, firms have to serve consumer interest. We call this idea consumer sovereignty. It's the idea that consumers ultimately drive firms and not the other way around, okay? When you put all this together, my friends, we can summarize that competitive market processes, what we call competitive dynamics, the presence of competition in a free market system will align the self-interest of firms with the social interest of the economy as a whole. It's amazing if you really think about it. The idea that when a firm is pursuing its selfish interests, its profit motives, it can only achieve its selfish interest, by achieving society's broad social interests. It's really amazing when you think about the fact that we can have a situation where self-interest and social interest are aligned. But competition makes that happen. Competition also generates big efficiencies, helping us to use scarce resources effectively. All of this combines so that we can conclude that competitive market processes and competitive market structures promote widespread economic progress. It is for this reason, my friends, that we conclude with something that I've been saying for the entire semester, but which now you hopefully see some of the intellectual rationale behind. At the end of it, competitive free markets, market structures defined by competition, the relentless and ruthless pursuit of profit, that these competitive free markets are and perhaps that competitive free markets are a critical and perhaps the critical institution for promoting economic growth, human happiness, and the flourishing, thriving well-being of humanity. And that's a bold statement, and it's one that I stand behind. And I hope that through these lectures, you now understand the virtues of competition, the virtues of a competitive market structure. And I hope that you can see that they truly are a critical institution, if not the critical institution, for maximizing human flourishing on this beautiful planet of ours. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sticking through these lectures. You now understand the model of perfect competition. Well done. I'll see you next time when we jump into Monopoly. Thanks and take care.